Hey guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. How you guys doing? What are you focused on right now inside the game? How you doing on Doom Tower? I'm still plugging away on hard, and it's getting pretty hard. But today we have an announcement. A bunch of new champions added to the game. 23 brand new champions have just arrived in time for winter. So we look at all of these champions. Today we're going to do a very quick kind of cursory review of these champions. We also have Sanbo. Oh, we have 3 uncommons. I'll try not to forget those. Barbarians, dwarves, and orcs. Remind me, but you can't. Anyway, we will go through all these new champions, talk about who is worth, building, if you're lucky enough to pull them, who you should be looking out for if you do pull them from a new shard. I love new champion releases. Some people hate it. Some people are like, dude, there's enough champions in the game already. I personally like when they add new champions. Keeps things fresh for me. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me there in the comments below. So there's a lot to get to here. We're going to try not to make this a 45-minute video. I'm going to try also not to miss any of these champions. We're also going to talk about the new champions that were added, such as Archmage Helmet here inside Doom Tower. So I will let you guys know if we're talking about a Doom Tower champion. Archmage Helmet is a Doom Tower champion, only unlocked during the Doom Tower, cannot be pulled from shards. Has a turn meter fill on the A1, 20% if it's critical. On the A2, attacks one enemy. Also attacks all other enemies if the first attack is critical. I like those kind of attacks. Each hit has a 50, make it 65, make it 75% chance of landing a stun debuff for 1 turn after attacking. Decrease turn meters of each enemy without a stun by 20%. So Time Slip on a 3-turn cooldown is one of the best epic abilities I've seen in a long time added to the game. I think the Archmage Helmet is a beast of a champion. Increased speed, increased crit rate, increased crit damage on all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. This dude's like a legendary. Immune to turn meter decreasing effects and speed in arena battles by 17% with a very high 108 base speed in his kit, dude. This guy is the real deal. Spending a little bit extra time on him because he's a beast. He's a really, really good champion. So this is not a Doom Tower champion. Gerhard the Stone, Bannerlord champion, Magic Affinity, Epic Attack champion. Attacks one enemy, has a 50, make it 25% chance of placing a stun when booked for 1 turn. Has a 50% chance when booked of placing a stun for 1 turn if the target has more than 75% turn meter on ringing bow. Show of Valor plays an increased crit rate, increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. Then attacks one enemy. Will ignore 25% of the target's defense or 50% if they're under an increased defense buff. He, I believe, is one of the fusion champions right now for Pyxniel. Immune to fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, and stun, and has a resist in Doom Tower battles by 50. So we're seeing those Doom Tower auras added to the game. I don't think he is a game changer champion, but I don't think he's bad either for a single target damage dealer. Next up is another guy who is in the fusion, Alaric the Hooded. Alaric is a super badass looking champion, man. They absolutely killed it with some of the graphics on these champions, guys. Some of my favorite looking champions, a bunch of them. You guys are going to be so impressed as we go through this video. Insane. The designers, man. The artists. This guy looks so cool, man. He's like a Bannerlord ninja dude. Anyway, he has a turn meter decrease on the A1. On the A2, he has a chance of removing 2 buffs or stealing them if the target has 4 or more buffs. On the A3, an AoE attack with the decrease attack and decrease accuracy on a 4-turn cooldown. Having the decreased accuracy and the decreased attack, granted on a 4-turn cooldown, but on an AoE, makes him a champion worth fusing, in my opinion. I think this guy is a champion worth looking into. Alaric the Hooded. Certainly a cool aesthetic about him as well. Now, a new rare champion here, a rare dagger. So dagger is pretty cool looking too. Even the rares look pretty cool. Attacks one enemy 2 times each. A critical hit decreases the target's turn meter by 4%. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So Precision Sabotage is a pretty reliable decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. It's a shame it's not 100%, but hey, what can you do? Attacks one enemy, decreased attack, 50% chance of placing a decreased attack instead of a decreased defense buff. Excuse me? 50, okay, well, there you go. I read it out. That's a 3-turn cooldown. Not bad, but not great. I think she is a Pretty solid champion because of this precision sabotage on a 3-turn cooldown. I'm going to rank her, I'll grade these champions. Why not have some fun with it, right? I'll grade her a B. High Elves. Well, we have the new fusion champion, Pyxniel. I think Pyxniel, I'm not as high on her as some of the other content creators are. I'm not saying she's trash. She's not trash. But I don't think she's like, certainly not like an S tier legendary in my opinion. She has a Veil on her A1. On her A2, she has an increased defense, continuous heal on all allies for 2 turns. When attacked, all enemies under freeze debuffs. Then attacks all enemies under freeze debuffs. Plays a weaken debuff for 2 turns on all enemies under freeze debuffs. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. So this is an insanely good ability. Yeah, maybe I am going to fuse her. I mean, I've already seen this once, but I'm reminded, wow, Grip of Winter is really solid. Especially if you put her with a Shiramani, any of the freeze champions out there. Attacks 5 times at random. Each hit has a 50% chance when booked to placing a freeze. 100% chance of placing a freeze debuff on enemies that receive 2 hits. Okay, so not bad, not amazing. And then whenever an enemy places a freeze debuff on an ally, has a 20% chance of stealing the freeze debuff and placing it on this champion instead. 25% chance of filling this champion's turn meter by 25% every time they receive a freeze debuff. 35% chance of removing any freeze debuff from this champion at the start of every turn. If there are multiple champions in the team with this skill, only one will activate. So that's her Frostweaver passive. She's an interesting champion. Again, I don't think a game changer, but that second ability is really solid. If you don't have a freeze champion or you want to you try out the Frostbite artifact sets, she's somebody kind of worth looking into. So that's all we have for new champions in High Elves. Enough champions in High Elves as it is anyway. Let's move on to the Sacred Order, and we have a new epic champion. It is Inquisitor Shamil. On the A1, attacks 1 enemy, 50% chance of decreasing the duration of a random buff on the target. By the way, Pyxniel, I will give her a B as well. Counterattacks with this skill each time an enemy places a debuff on an ally. Interesting. These counterattacks will only deal 50% of the normal damage and cannot be critical. Man, that's pretty good. Attacks 1 enemy 3 times, will ignore 25% of the target's defense. Will ignore a further 25% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion. Places a true fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. Cow of Horrors is actually a pretty insane ability as well. Each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 7.5%. Whenever an ally receives a fear or true fear debuff, this skill will instantly remove that debuff and fill the ally's turn meter by 15%. So Dauntless is a really insane passive. It's very niche, but I like it. Has accuracy in Doom Tower battles by 60. I think this dude is going to be, again, a very niche champion, but it's going to be a game changer in certain situations, certainly against Fear and True Fear. Really cool passive on this champion, and that's all we have for new champions, I believe, in Sacred Order. Next up, we have Barbarians. So Barbarians, we have a new legendary champion. Here he is. It's Yakarl the Scourge. On the A1, attacks 1 enemy 2 times. He's a Void legendary. Better be good, right? Each has a 20% chance of placing a freeze. Will ignore shield buffs if there are 1 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. Will ignore block damage buffs if there are 2 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. Will also ignore 30% of the target's defense if there are 3 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. Interesting. So think of Yakarl on the same team as Pyxniel, with another freeze champion on the team as well. That's pretty insane. Attacks 1 enemy, 75% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff for 3 turns, and a 75% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. Also steals 100% of the target's turn meter and places a 30% increased speed buff on this champion for 3 turns. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. That's really, really good. Blizzard Rider. Solid, man. By the way, I have not watched anybody else's take on these champions. This is my unfiltered opinion on these guys. But having the decreased speed, the freeze, and the increased speed, and the 100% target turn meter steal is solid. All right, Glaciate. Attacks 1 enemy 3 times. If the target is under a freeze debuff, removes the debuffs after attacking and places it on all enemies. Interesting. Except the initial target. Will also attack all enemies except the initial target after the 3rd hit. The freeze debuff will be placed on all other enemies even if the initial target dies before their freeze debuff is removed. That's interesting, man. He's a weird champion. Decreases the damage this champion receives by 10% and increases the damage the champion inflicts by 10% if there are more than one enemies under freeze. Increases the champion's speed by 15 and resistance by 50 if there are 2 or more champions under freeze. And it places an unkillable buff on the champion for 2 turns whenever there are 3 enemies under freeze. Dude, he is the ultimate freeze team synergy. And then increases all attack, ally attack and Doom Tower battles by 43%. Listen, he is a legendary Void, so he ought to be good. And I actually like that they're doing this. I like that they're introducing champions to the game who are very unique, you know, like, because it gets redundant adding new champions all the time. He's really unique. Obviously, he's a beast on a freeze team. I like him. I think he's a good champion. I'm going to give him a B as well. Man, it's been all Bs. I'm not trying to ride the fence here, but maybe a B+. B+. Harken Great Blade. Honor A1, a new Barbarian Void epic champion. Attacks 1 enemy. Places an extra hit if the attack is critical. Attacks 1 enemy. 75% chance, make it 100 when booked to placing a weakened debuff on the target for 2 turns before attacking. Attacks 1 enemy. Applies a debuff spread effect, taking 2 random debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies. Also extends the duration of those debuffs by 2 turns. Will not extend the duration of debuffs on the initial target. That's on a 4-turn cooldown. Will not extend the duration of debuffs on the initial target, makes that she can't be used against clan boss. Otherwise, it would be so OP. I think she's an interesting champion, but, you know, that one line there does disqualify her from the obvious best, you know, spot. However, Infectious Panic is a uniquely cool ability for a team that has a lot of debuffs, right? And, you know, and you can obviously take a target who has decreased defense on one target, put her on the same team, and you add it to all enemies, and you extend the duration. It's a really cool and unique skill. The rest of her kit is extremely underwhelming. Increased ally attack and Doom Tower battles by 32%. A great aura. You can tell these champions are being made for Doom Tower. They're being released for Doom Tower. I think she is a B-, but she has some potential. Again, niche, but potential. Tiger Soul, a rare barbarian attack-based champion. She looks pretty cool, too. Look at that cape. Man, so cool. Let me know, by the way, if you disagree on any of these champions or if you agree with me on any of these champions in the comments below. Has a great poison shot. Strong version of poison on a rare champion. 60% for 2 turns. Strong version on the A1. Wow. Attacks 1 enemy. Has a 100% chance of landing a weakened debuff for 2 turns on the A2. Block debuffs and increased defense buff on this champion for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown on Tiger's Strength. So definitely a clan boss viable champion for kind of the early mid game, but I'm not entirely impressed besides this poison. And she has poison and weaken. So if you're missing a weaken against clan boss in the early game, I think she's a great option. Otherwise, whatever. Sanbo is a new champion. He's an uncommon. Interesting look about him. Interesting aesthetic. He has a 1 enemy and attacks 1 enemy 2 times with a weaken, weak version. Nothing to write home about there. In what was his name? Sanbo. I was gonna say sandbox like a dummy. All right, so those are those new champions. Next up, we're going to Ogren. This is going to be a long video. I apologize, guys. Let me know if you like these type of videos or if you find them too long. We have a Grunge Killjoy. I love the name. And what is... Oh, my God. It's got the biggest backpack ever known to man. Handsome looking fella, right? Epic support champion, Force Affinity. 1 enemy has a block buffs chance on the A1. On the A2, an AoE attack with the bomb. I like they're adding more bomb champions. We need more bomb champions to have more bomb viable teams inside the game. On the A3, removes all debuffs from all allies, then places 1 15% continuous heal for 1 turn on each ally for every debuff removed from them. On a 4-turn, Hex Eater. Wow, that's pretty cool. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 10% whenever a bomb debuff detonates on an enemy. Dude, that's really cool. I think it's a very cool champion. Increase ally defense in faction crypts by 30%. I think it's a cool champion, man. This ability, granted on a 4-turn, is really solid. We have the debuff removal and then continuous heal for every single debuff removed, man. That's really solid. I think he's a good champion. Good support champion. We have a new rare, Roughstone. Kind of a cool look about him as well. On the A1, he's attack-based champion. An AoE on the A1, okay. And then attacks one enemy, decreases the target's max HP by 15% of the damage inflicted. A max HP champion for Doom Tower. Attacks one enemy, will ignore 50% of the target's defense. Has a 50% chance of granting an extra turn if this attack is critical. So on a 3-turn cooldown, Slobbering Rush, another really solid champion. A rare champion at that, guys. Roughstone has some potential here, and you can be used against Scarab King as well with the max HP as well. So I think he's a really cool champion. They added for a rare champion especially. And check out Gear Grinder, man. Dude, I'm just gonna fawn over every single one of these graphics. I apologize. HP-based champion, Void Affinity. On the A1, continuous heal on this champion for 1 turn if the attack is critical. On the A2, heals all allies by 15% of their max HP on 3-turn cooldown. Revives a dead ally with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. HP and faction crits 25%. So I don't think he is... He's a decent healer. Has the continuous heal on the A1 on this champion. On the A2, 15% heal. On the A3, revival. He's a decent reviver, but not my favorite. I'll give him a C. And I'll give this dude, Roughstone, a... For a rare champion, I'll give him an A-. All right. These are just kind of subjective whatevers. Grunge Killjoy, the bomb guy, I'll give him an A. I think he's really solid with that cleanser on there, right? And that's all we have new for Ogren. Moving on to Lizardmen, we have this dude, Ayox the Remembered. He is a cool looking dude, man. He is a cool looking frog guy. On the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times. Has a 20% chance, 30% chance of placing a poison debuff for 2 turns. Not bad. Attacks one enemy, 3-turn cooldown. Heals all allies by 10% of their max HP. Heals each ally by an extra 2.5% for each debuff on the target. Okay. I like that. It's a better heal than the last champion, right? Granted, an epic versus a rare. Places a decreased attack debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Also has a 100% chance when booked of decreasing each target's turn meter by 20%. Also places a 30% decreased crit rate debuff on the target for 2 turns if they have 50% or more turn meter after the turn meter decrease. Pretty cool. Weight of Aeons. And then on the A3, oh, that was the A3. Steward of Time increases the duration of 2 random debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn when attacked. Okay. Interesting. Increase the duration of 2 random debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn when attacked. It's actually not bad, right? Man, a lot of these new champions are pretty cool in terms of their overall utility that they're adding. Decrease attack, turn meter. I'm gonna give him a C+. I don't know. That was a tough call on that guy, but he's a cool concept of a champion. He has a cool look about him too. 10%. Decrease. This is a good ability on 3-turn cooldown. The rest of his kit is increase the duration of 2 random debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn when attacked. I like that. Definitely a clan boss guy, right? I take it back. I'm going to give him a B+ clan boss specialist. All right, moving on. We have Skinwalkers. So Skinwalkers, no new legendaries, no new epics, 1 new rare. And it's Panthera. Really cool looking aesthetic on her. On the A1, 1 enemy 3 times. Each critical hit has a 50, 60, 70, 85, or 70, 10, 25, 75% chance of placing a decrease in the target's turn meter by 3%. Okay. Tests 1 enemy 2 times. Has a heal reduction on the A2. And then a perfect veil and a reflect damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. I'm not blown away by this one. Not blown away by Panthera. We'll give her a D. And she's a Void, too. For a Void, I don't know, man. She doesn't do it for me. She does not do it for me. A perfect veil for 2 turns every 3 turns is pretty cool, but I don't know. You guys, what do you think on her? I'm not feeling her. She is a rare, my bad. I thought she was an epic, but still, I'm not blown away by her. All right, next up, we have a new legendary next to Robar. It's Gomlock Skyhide. Okay, so a new orc legendary in Gomlock. He is a Doom Tower champion, guys. Doom Tower only. Has a leech on the A1. Has a debuff for 2 turns on 2 random enemies if this champion has full HP. That's pretty solid. Attacks 1 enemy, has a 100% chance of stealing 2 random buffs from the target. Also has a 100% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 50%. Steals 50% of the target's turn meter instead if this champion has full HP on a 2-turn cooldown. What? That's sick. Attacks all enemies 2 times on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. Each hit is a 75% chance, 100% chance of placing a decreased defense on all enemies for 2 turns. The first hit on each target also has a 100% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. The second hit on each target has a 100% chance of placing a weakened debuff for 2 turns if this champion has full HP. Wow. And then whenever 4 or more buffs are placed on an enemy team in a single turn, place a shield buff on the champion for equal to 15% of the champion's max HP for 2 turns. Pretty solid champ. High base speed, decent attack, and decent defense and HP. Really good champion, though. I mean, obviously, the AoE decreased defense, the weakened turn meter. He has it all, man. There's a reason he's a Doom Tower only champion, right? Really, really good champ. New rare is Pig Sticker. Pig Sticker looks cool. On the A1, has the heal reduction. On the A2, decreases the target's max HP by 20% of the damage inflicted. Again, a good scarab option for you guys. And again, decreases target's max HP by 30% on the 3-turn cooldown. So definitely a Scarab King specialist for you guys. Definitely a champion worth investing in. I'm going to give her an A for a rare specialist, but definitely gets the job done. Oh, by the way, we'll give Gomlock A for a legendary grade here. I keep forgetting to give the grades out. Is that all we have here? I think we have 1 Sun Tribe. Cool for an uncommon. Cool look for an uncommon. Attacks 1 enemy, heals the champion by 10% of the damage inflicted. Sacrifices HP equal to 10% of this champion's max HP, then heals a target ally by 10% of their max HP. Also has a 50% chance when booked of placing a continuous heal buff on that ally. Meh. Really bad champion. Give him an F or her an F. She is uncommon, but still bad. Bad is bad, right? Who else next? We have no new legendaries there. And we have Ayox the Seared. Ayox the Seared is a Doom Tower only champion, epic defense based champion, decreased crit rate on the A1, on the A2, and AoE attack with HP burn, increased by 20% for each alive enemy. Still only a 40% chance, but it is an AoE attack. On the A3, an AoE again on a 4-turn cooldown. Note that the defense is a defense based champion. Has a 50% chance of increasing the cooldowns of all skills by 2 turns on enemies under HP burn. Also places a shield buff equal to 20% of this champion's max HP on all allies for 2 turns. Instantly activates the skill when this champion is revived by Ryan the Conjurer. So definitely an insane ability, you know. There's no doubt about that. And with the shield there, again, it's really a Doom Tower specialist. Passive has a 10% chance of placing a fear debuff on an enemy for 1 turn whenever they receive damage from an HP debuff placed on themselves. So again, definitely a really cool champion. I mean, look at the aesthetic of this dude too. You can tell that he's a Doom Tower only champion because he really has a legendary-like kit, in my opinion. I'll give him an A. Next up we have, it's Ayox the wendarian. This chick. Wow. I'm just like looking at the art here. Ayox the wendarian. What's a wendarian? My bad, guys. My bad. Am I supposed to know what a wendarian is? All right. This is, I don't know why, but I think this is my favorite champion aesthetically so far. I mean, just look at this. Wow. Such a cool look, man. Wow. All right, on the A1, I'll stop admiring for a second and get to it. 30% chance of decreasing the duration of 1 random buff on the target if it's under an HP burn debuff. Also has a 30% chance of decreasing the turn meter by 15% if they have freeze. So now we're getting all the synergies coming together. Freeze and HP burn. Plays a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn and a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Pretty solid. Frostfire Gale attacks all enemies has a 70, 80, 90% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn on a 4-turn cooldown on enemies whose attack is higher than their defense. Has a 70% chance, 90, of placing HP burn debuff for 1 turn on enemies whose defense is higher than their attack. Interesting. Very niche, interesting, cool champion. I would get the Sniper Mastery and book that up to, and get that up to 95% chance of landing those debuffs. Heals all allies by 5% of their max HP every time an enemy under HP burn gets debuff gets a turn. Fills a turn meter every time by 10% every time an enemy under freeze gets a turn. Cool champ, man. Defense in all battles by 25%. I don't know. Aesthetically, A++ for me. Overall, and this is not a Doom Tower champion either. Overall, I'll give it a B-. All right, Undead Horde here, guys. We got a bunch of new champs, starting out with Necrot the Great. Necrot the Great, another cool aesthetic on this champion, guys. This guy looks like a beast. All right, 6 skills. Legendary Void champion, Necrot the Great. On the A1, attacks 1 enemy 3 times, has a 30% chance of placing a decreased attack debuff for 1 turn, cannot be resisted. On the A2, teams up with allies to attack 1 enemy. All allies under ally protection buffs placed by this champion will join the attack. Allies joining the attack will use their default skills. Grants an extra turn if this attack does not kill the target. Whoa, that's cool. Disturbing Infusion plays a block debuffs buff, an ally protection buff, and a strengthen buff on all allies for 3 turns. What? Ally protection buff cannot be removed on a 3-turn cooldown. What? Dude. Disturbing Infusion, Necrot the Great is one of the best champions in the game. This is constant. It's on a 3-turn cooldown. Constant strengthen, block debuffs, and ally protect. Wow. Passive number 1. Whenever an ally is attacked while under ally protect buff, placed by this champion, place a shield buff on the ally equal to 30% of the champion's max HP for 2 turns. Occurs only if the ally does not already have a shield buff placed by this champion. Also decreases the cooldown of the champion's Legion of the Damned skill by 2 turns if the shield buff is placed. And Legion of the Damned is what one again? That was the big, strong ally protect, or excuse me, the ally attack buff. Block buffs buff in a strengthen buff for 3 turns on an ally with the lowest max HP at the start of each round. Also places an ally protection buff on them for 6 turns. And the ally protect cannot be removed. Yeah, guys, resistant all battles by 60. I'm just gonna say it. I think that Necrot the Great is one of the greatest champions in the game. We'll give him an A+. You can make the argument, where he falls in the top 10 legendary champions, but I'm going to go ahead and say he belongs on that list. Also maybe belonging on that list is erhost the Soul Cage. Doom Tower only champion. Has a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of the champion's max HP for 2 turns. Shield's value increases by 1% for each poison debuff on the target. On the A2, attacks all enemies. Has a 100% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15% on enemies under 1 or more poison debuffs. Also has 100% chance of placing a decreased speed for 2 turns on enemies under 2 poison debuffs. Has a 100% chance of placing a stun under enemies with 3 or more poison debuffs. Instantly activates this skill when the champion is revived by Ryan the Conjurer. Damage is based on HP on a 3-turn cooldown. Wow, what an AoE attack that is, huh? Has a strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns and a 50% ally protection buff on allies except this champion for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Passive. When attacked, has a 75% chance when booked of placing a poison debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. Whenever an ally is attacked while under a strengthened buff, has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Increases champion's max HP by 5% whenever an enemy receives damage from a poison debuff placed by this champion. What? Whenever an enemy receives a damage from a poison debuff placed by this champion, also decreases their max HP by 5%. Dude, this guy's a beast too. I don't like him quite as... He's a Doom Tower only. He's amazing. I don't think he's quite as good as Necrot, in my opinion, but he's right there in the conversation. A little bit more a niche, but man, on a poison team... Guy's unstoppable, man. Unstoppable. We have this cool looking dude. Who is this big fella? Wow. He's got the double shield too. The double purple shield here, guys. That's cool. It's Balthus Draglord. On the A1, has a decreased attack damage based on defense. On the A2, an AoE attack with a decreased crit rate for 2 turns. On a 3-turn cooldown, nice to see. Has attack one enemy, 100% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 2 turns. Also heals this champion by 20% of their max HP. Passive, reflects 30% of the damage this champion receives back to the attacker. And then increase allied defense and faction crits by 30%. Man, he's a really cool champ. Both of the legendaries I'll give an A+ to, by the way. Balthus we will give a, man, provoke, crit rate, AoE, decrease attack on the A1, reflect, B+. No new rares, no new uncommons in Undead Horde. Dark Elves here, guys. Dark Elves. We have Ryan the Conjurer. So Ryan, we already talked about, has block buffs on the A1. On the A2, we have a 75% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. That's a 100% chance. Also has a weaken 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. And then revives a dead ally with 50% HP, then fills their turn meter by 50%. We'll also place a block debuff buff on them for 2 turns. We'll also revive Akov the Seared and erhost the Soul Cage. Ryan the Conjurer is a Doom Tower only champion. If they are not the target, they'll be revived. If they are the target, they'll be revived with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. Really cool revival. You guys can read it all if you want. I kind of glossed it over a little bit because this video is going long, but super cool champion. Accuracy in all battles by 40. This ability alone, Sweeping Dismissal, is super, super effective. Really strong. I'm going to give Ryan a A-. And then no new rares there. Moving on to Night Revenant, we have Thea the Tomb Angel. She is an A champion as well, maybe A+ champion. So many good champions added, guys. 2 times at random, has a 100% chance of placing a Hex debuff, our first Hex debuff champion in the game. 100%, this debuff cannot be resisted. Each critical hit decreases the cooldown of Not Out of This World by 1 turn. So 2 turns off of this if they're both critical. Not bad. And this plays a perfect veil buff on this champion for 3 turns and grants an extra turn. Wow. That's a beautiful synergy of the A1 and the A3, guys. It's not, you know, it doesn't stick out at you as like, oh my god, that's so OP, but that is really OP. And then Hex Reaper attacks all enemies. Damage increases by 50% for each Hex debuff on the enemy team. Stacks up to 300%, removes all Hex debuffs from the enemies after attacking. That's on a 5-turn cooldown. And then passive is 50% chance to place a True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn when an enemy loses 30% or more of their max HP in a single hit, dude. This champion's an A+ again. One of the best champions in the game too. We're seeing 3 of the 3, I think, so far, of the top 10, in my opinion, legendaries in the game in this new champion edition. Rector Drath, another cool looking champion. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl. Has a dress, kind of. Does it have boobs? I don't know. We're not sure on this one. Has a decreased attack on the A1. On the A2, heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP after healing. Plays a perk Veil buff for 2 turns on all allies with full HP. 50% continuous heal for 1 turn instead on all allies with less than 100% HP. Wow. 4-turn cooldown, but a great ability. Revives a single ally with 60% HP and fills their turn meter by 60%. Perfect Veil on them for 3 turns. That's a great revival. The Perfect Veil is perfect. No pun intended. That's really great. And then whenever an ally under Veil or Perfect Veil gets a turn, heals them by 10% of their max HP. Also increase the resistance of allies under Veil or Perfect Veil by 50. Dude, put this champion on a team with like Duchess, granted a legendary champion, but another Perfect Veil champion or a Veil champion, and that's a really amazing synergy. Rector Drath is a very good, even without another Perfect Veil champion on the team, very good support champion. I'm going to give him or her an A. 109 base speed too, guys. Dude, they brought the thunder with these new champions. Okay, she's not new. Just making sure I'm not missing anybody here. I feel like I'm going to miss somebody. Let me know who I do in the comments below. We got Ragnar Gold Gleam, a new dwarf epic champion. We need more dwarves, so here he is, the big fella in the black armor. On the A1, has a 60% chance of placing a leech. Not bad. Sacrifices HP equal to 15% of this champion's max HP, then fills this champion's turn meter by 75%, places a shield buff on this champion equal to 20% of their max HP for 3 turns. The shield cannot be removed. The HP sacrifice will happen even if it kills the champion. Interesting. That's on a 3-turn cooldown. Plays an increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks one enemy. Has a 100% chance when booked to placing a weakened debuff on the target for 2 turns. Also has a 100% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff on the target for 2 turns before attacking. Passive. Decrease the cooldown of the champion's Gleam of Avarice, that was the A3 here, by 1 turn every time this champion loses 50% HP. This HP loss is accumulated and tracked over multiple turns, attacks, or hits, and is not affected by healing or other HP decreases. I gotta say, at first glance, doesn't look that incredible. But the synergy between the passive, between the shield, the never-ending shield, and between the A3 here, with the decreased defense, 100%, seems like it could have, it has the weaken. Interesting. Seems like it could be a clan boss champion. Attack and Doom Tower by 35%. Also maybe other utility. I just have like a very, very strange feeling that he also might have really crazy multipliers on this champion. So the jury's still going to be out on him. This is Kurzhod Deepar, a rare champion new to the game. Really cool look on him too. He looks like a little troll dude. Like, you know those trolls back in the 90s or 80s? I don't know. With the hair kind of going on here. Anyway, on the A1, has an extra hit if the attack is critical. The extra hit also plays a decreased speed for 2 turns, not bad. Attacks all enemies. Each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 7.5% on an AoE 3-turn attack. Increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies. 75% chance of placing a decreased defense for 2 turns, the weak version. Man, on 3-turn cooldown? Hey, Kurzhod Deepar is a champion worth upgrading. Really good. I'm going to give him an A for a rare champion. 3-turn cooldown, AoE attack. Each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 7.5%. So you're talking like 25% turn meter, 30% turn meter fill, or more on this ability, depending on how many enemies are alive or targeted. And then the increased accuracy buff on all allies, then the AoE attack, so 2 3-turn AoEs with a 50% increased accuracy, very hard to find on an AoE, especially from a rare champion. That's crazy. This is a really, really solid rare. I'll give him an A. And that concludes this. Now it doesn't. Icebound Prospector. There you go, an uncommon dwarf champion. On the A1, attacks 1 enemy. On the A2, attacks 1 enemy, has a 30% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Okay, we'll give him an F. He feels like he should freeze somebody instead of stun, doesn't he, guys? Clearly, he has the same kind of model here as our boy Gerhard, too, right? But either way, pretty cool champion. What do you think of all these new champions, guys? And let me know if I missed any here. I'm going to go ahead and end the video because it has been long, guys. But hey, a ton of new good champions. Who is your favorite? Who's top on your wish list? Let me know, guys. Thank you for watching all the way till the end. I appreciate you guys. And as always, take care, guys.